brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hello out there. Welcome to Valley Navel Gazing on 103.5 WNHH, New Haven's community radio station. My name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm a reporter with valleyindy.org. This podcast is also put on valleyindy.org, iTunes, SoundCloud, Libsyn, and YouTube. So, the topic today, I'm not going to take too long to set it up. This is a reporters' roundtable you're going to hear. You're going to hear a bunch of reporters talking about what it was like to cover the Naugatuck Valley over the last 20 years or so. It was recorded during The Great Give last week, The Great Give was May 2nd and May 3rd, and that's a 36-hour online fundraiser for all sorts of nonprofits in the area, including valleyindy.org. And to promote The Great Give and to raise money for our publication, we had about 27 interviews, 30-minute interviews over the course of 36 hours where we talked to nonprofit leaders, all sorts of people from the valley, the Naugatuck Valley. And it was all on Facebook Live. We did it all on video. Very awkward, a lot of cringe-inducing stuff, some funny stuff, some boring stuff. It was all over the place, some informative stuff. I had a blast doing it. And this reporter's roundtable you're about to hear was one of the highlights, I think. During this episode, you'll hear first from Kate Rammuni. She was previously the Valley reporter for the Connecticut Post. Now she's with the New Haven Register. While at the Post, she actually broke this big story. Shelton had a terrorist living in their ranks, Faisal Shahzad. He tried to blow up Times Square with a car bomb a couple of years back. And Kate, after they had arrested him, went through his trash. So she gives us an unvarnished take on how that happened. And then Joe Musante, he was with the Evening Sentinel, which, if you're not from the Valley, that was the Valley's newspaper for over 100 years until a newspaper chain came in and killed it. And that happened in 1992. Joe was there. It's the first time I've heard an eyewitness account of what happened there. Sorry, that's a motorcycle going by. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. And then Melvin Mason, formerly of the Connecticut Post, is in this podcast, as is Jodie Gill, who Paul Bass hired with me to launch valleyindy.org back in 2009, thanks to foundation money from VCF, the Valley Community Foundation, the Knight Foundation, Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. And by the way, huge thanks to the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven for putting on The Great Give. It was such a blast. And to VCF, the Valley Community Foundation. Really great stuff. And just before I begin, I just want to note we had new intro music this week. Maybe you've noticed. That is the Bad Slugs, Ride the Dinosaur. Bad Slugs is a rock band. I guess they're based in Fairfield County. Well, at least they work at Fairfield County newspapers. They're all a bunch of journalists. Got some editors in there, reporters, columnists, copy desk guys, I think even a web dude. And they have a new, it's their debut EP. It's available on CD and digital download. Again, it's the Bad Slugs. You want to check them out, go to thebadslugs.bandcamp.com or go to facebook.com/badslugs. Thanks, guys, for letting us use your song, Ride the Dinosaur. These are newspaper guys. I'll let you guess what Ride the Dinosaur is about. All right. Here is recorded live last week on the Facebook during the Great Give in the Valley Indy office, an ex-Valley Reporters Roundtable. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Eugene Driscoll, and hopefully we're live. I don't know. It's nonprofit independent journalism. Thank you so much for joining us. It's about 4:32 in the afternoon. See, I'm going to hit go live. See, but we're already live. That's You think that would do it? Nope, we were already going. This is a ex-Valley Reporters Roundtable. I thought it might be interesting to talk to people who covered the Valley as journalists over the past, I don't know, we probably cover the last 10 years or so. And so we're going to have like a roundtable discussion of, somebody here? Oh, is that Ethan? We're going to have a roundtable discussion of stories they covered that they remember, what it was like to cover the Valley, and I'm just going to throw it out to them. You know, it's not really going to be a Q&A. It's more like I'm going to sit back because my brain is mashed potatoes right now, and I'm going to let them talk. So let's go around the room, and the first person I'm going to ask your name and who you are, what the heck are you doing here, is our mystery guest on the phone. Can you hear me, caller?
I can hear you.
Who are you?
Kate Rammuni, formerly of the Connecticut Post and Hometown Publications.
And how long did you cover the Valley when you were with the Connecticut Post?
Well, I started with the Post in 1998, and I covered the Valley, except for a short period of time where I covered Stratford and Bridgeport. I covered the Valley until 2010.
And right now, Kate, you're a reporter with the New Haven Register, right?
Yes, I cover Hamden and North Haven for the New Haven Register.
Thank you so much for coming on this afternoon. Oh yeah, we're gonna let you go early because you have something to cover. And then, okay, Kate, thank you and welcome. And then, Mr. Joe, you're like it's a pleasure to meet you. It's the first time I've met you in person. Your reputation precedes you. Thank you for clearing a nice path here in the Valley and making journalists look good.
Oh, well, thank you, Eugene. That's probably a little too kind, but I appreciate it anyway. In fact, Kate and I worked together briefly at the Connecticut Post towards the tail end of my journalism career. We were both in the Valley Bureau for a while.
That was on Elizabeth Street.
On Elizabeth Street, right. It's no longer there's no longer a bureau at the Post. So I was at the Post for 8 years, starting in 1993, and prior to that, I was at the Evening Sentinel.
Woo!
Oh yeah,
The legendary
Evening Sentinel. Oh yeah.
We have one. I'm gonna turn the camera. We have one copy of the Evening Sentinel here from 1991 when Mark Loretti was first elected mayor.
So your byline is probably in that.
It could be in that edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll check after.
We'll have to check, see what I wrote.
We'll copy edit it.
Yeah.
So,
Jodie, you I kind of know.
You guys know me, but so I'm Jodie Gill, formerly Jodie Moster, and I worked in the Valley first in 2006, 2007 at the Republican American, and then I came back here, it was 2009, until 2012 when I left to go teach at Southern. So I've come back every year.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'm
this is
actually
like,
glad that I'm an invited guest, because I'm like, if I wasn't invited, I would have just come back.
that would be awesome too. Yeah, you're welcome to stop by anytime. Excuse me, especially if you want to do some freelance. So I thought we had Melvin Mason in the room. Maybe not. If Melvin's here, you can come on back, but he's not.
I didn't see him.
All right, so I wanted to talk to Kate first because she's got to go and she's on the phone. Kate, I saw a tweet from the former U.S. Attorney, Parikh. Do you know how to say his name? Bahar? I don't know how to say his name. I apologize. Ethan did. He had said, like, this week was the anniversary of the Shelton terrorist, Faisal Shahzad, who attempted to ignite a car bomb down in Times Square. And that was back in, I think, 2010 or 2009 or so. Jodie and I covered
2010.
it. And we were trounced thoroughly by you, Kate, who ended up going through the terrorist garbage. I was wondering if you could tell that story, how you got that. I mean, it's a literal scoop, right?
Yes.
You guys are journalists, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of. Go ahead.
That was one of the more interesting events in my career. We had there was a whole group of reporters outside of the house that day, and there was a police presence. They didn't want to let anyone go past a certain area. So everyone was there talking, and while no one was looking, I kind of slipped past the police and everyone and went into the backyard of the house. And it had been raining, and there was several bags of garbage back there. And since they weren't letting anyone go back, I was alone. And I figured, well, I'm a journalist. I'm curious about everything. So I opened the garbage bags, and there was just like a treasure trove of things from belongings from the man. And there was passports, there was family pictures, there was birthday cards, different cards that he had sent to family members. I think there was even records of his grades from school. He had attended a couple universities at that point. And there was just so much stuff. And I just started packing it literally down my pants, down my shirt, anywhere I could put it where no one will see it. And then I just kind of nonchalantly walked back up and got in the car and left and went back to the office and just laid everything out on the table. It was all soaked. And I remember my editors were a bit nervous about what if I could get arrested for having done that.
Because it could have been trespassing, I guess. Someone could have claimed trespassing.
Yeah, it's stealing. I mean, at the time, I didn't think about it. I was thinking about, the story and getting as much as I could. So, but it turned out that they weren't interested in charging me with anything. And I'm pretty sure that what happened was everything was photographed by our photographers and then turned over to the FBI. So they ended up with all the information anyway.
Yeah, did the police or the FBI ever reach out to you personally to inquire about how you obtained the materials?
No, actually, they just communicated with my editors. My editors kept me out of everything, so I didn't have to deal with anything after taking it. They handled the whole thing.
Was there any fallout from the police on the local level the next time you ran into them? Come on back, Melvin. That's your seat.
Actually, I have to say the Shelton police are the greatest police department in the world. I haven't covered them in a long time, but I've covered so many departments, so many towns in both Fairfield and New Haven County, and they were the greatest police department I ever worked with. They were so open about everything. They gave me information without hesitation. I mean, I have only the best things to say about the Shelton Police Department, and they never, I don't think anyone even mentioned it to me after that incident.
And just so you know, into the room just walked your former colleague Melvin Mason. Just arrived. Welcome, Melvin.
Hi, Kate. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. A little bit rushed today, but other than that, still pretty good.
And we're live. This is going on, just so you know.
I know. How you doing?
And so Melvin is getting married in a few days. That's Melvin's big news. Yeah. In addition, you're the editor of the Stratford Star, and you're a former Connecticut Post reporter. You worked out of the Derby Bureau on Elizabeth Street with Kate. Kate, just my one last question about the Fazal Shahzad trash mongering. What information did you get out of the materials you collected, and did it help you in any way, inform you or the public about, because he's still a mystery in a lot of ways. He's basically been thrown away, they locked away the key, and that was the end of him. What did you learn about his personality, perhaps, if anything, from going through his trash?
I think the information that we got from the garbage bags, I think it gave a more rounded view of him. There was this one persona of him, the terrorist, but we saw him as like the son and the brother and the student, and I think it gave him, it made it more personalized, the story, that we were able to report on, the grades that he got in school and the sentiments that he said to his relatives on their birthdays, and just to give him more of a personality apart from being a terrorist.
And then, like looking back,
it was really. Go ahead.
I'm thinking, like, now looking back all these years later, it's almost more chilling because there was a guy who didn't fit any type of mold or what you had in your head at that time as a terrorist. Seemed like a normal guy living in a house much nicer than mine in a nicer neighborhood, and he goes and tries to blow up Times Square. And it wasn't like in the trash. It wasn't like the manuscript from The Shining, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It was a pretty normal dude who somehow had his mind clouded and corrupted and did what he did. So
it showed that he was like just on the one hand, he was just a normal person who was living in this house, living his life, going to school, and but then there was this other whole side of him that no one really knew about, that he was involved in these activities, and that ended up getting him in a lot of trouble.
And then let me just throw it out now, because and again, guys, you guys are my mind is mush right now. Actually, Melvin's is too, I guess, because you put the paper on it. But maybe you guys are too. I'm so egotistical. I think as like the reporter, I'm working hard. Maybe we're all sorry. I apologize. But
no. You got a lot of stuff going. So that's
did you guys have any questions for Kate?
I do. So I don't remember well enough because I was just beating myself up for not having gone through the trash that day because I was the one standing behind the police tape, at that same moment. But why was all that stuff in the garbage at that moment? Like,
I never really found that out. It seemed like they were cleaning their house out because there was so much garbage. I mean, for what I took, there was probably 10, 12 times more stuff there that I wasn't able to go through. And who knows what was in there? There could have been a lot of really good stuff. But it seems like they were doing some kind of major cleanup there. I'm not sure if it was. He was
certainly getting ready for a big life change.
Yeah.
Definitely, because there was a lot of bags back there, and a lot of them I couldn't even get to because they were piled up. And I probably went through 3 or 4 of them before I left because I was getting nervous that I was going to get caught and they were going to take from me what I was able to get.
Yeah.
So
that is some industrious reporting right there, Kate. Goodness gracious, going through trash.
It was one of the highlights of my career, that's for sure.
All right, Kate. I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to talk to us, and we miss you here in the Valley.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I miss it so much. I covered Shelton most of my career. I love Shelton. It'll always have my heart, and I'm hoping someday to return to Shelton to live because it's such a great place, and the Valley's such a great community. I really miss it.
By the way, I really do miss hanging out with you in the Valley Bureau.
We had really good times in the Bureau. I miss it so much. I can't believe it's totally gone now. Yep. It was a really, really good time in my life.
Yeah, exactly. Get a chance to live right next door and just come by and bring you some food.
Yeah, it was great.
And I'll echo that, Kate. It was great working with you for the couple of years that we worked together at the Post. It was an interesting time back then.
Yeah, we had really good times in the Bureau with Debbie Carvelco, Rachel Katz. It was a great time.
Yeah, we had a good team.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I mean, we spent more time laughing, I think, than anything.
That's true.
All right, Kate, we'll let you go because you're a working reporter. You got to get to a meeting.
Yeah, I got to go actually do an interview and then go to a meeting. So
of course, and try to eat dinner.
Live blog it while you're doing it.
Dinner I think is going to be way later.
All right, keep up the good work. Keep up the good fight. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
See you later, Kate.
Our pleasure.
Okay, bye.
All right.
That was Kate Rammuni. Let me just make sure. I've never said the phone's broken. So anyway. So, that was nice, huh? Kate
Rammuni. I miss Kate.
So, I want to talk to now Mr. Musante about, because you were there when the Evening Sentinel was still around.
Oh, yeah.
And my connection, we're named in honor of the Evening Sentinel, but I didn't grow up in the Valley. When it went out in the 94...
It was Christmas Eve, 1992 was our last publication date.
Were you there at that time?
I was, yeah.
So, you probably told the story 100,000 times.
Yep.
But I'm going to ask you to tell it again.
Absolutely.
Because this was a story I would hear. I'd be hanging out at the Dewdrop Inn before it took off.
Yep.
And people would be like, you're a reporter? What do you need some of this story about the Christmas Eve massacre. And I'm like, man, this guy's cut him off. But it happened. So you were there. Tell us about what the Christmas Eve massacre is or was.
Sure. And just to sort of put it into context, what had happened was, of course, the Sentinel was in operation forever, long before we were born. Went back over 100 years. I guess it was in 1990 or around there, Thompson Newspapers had bought the Connecticut Post. We were owned by Thompson Newspapers. So initially, nobody thought too much about it, although there was some scuttlebutt about, well, does this big corporation really want to own two newspapers and kind of cross-section of the circulation area? And but nothing really came of it until 1992. I'll never forget it because it was right after President Bush had come to Warsaw Park. And that was one of our, it was massive coverage. I mean, I was a sports editor at the end, and I was there covering it too. So it was a lot of fun. I think right after that next Monday or Tuesday, we find out, I think it was first in the newspaper, we read about it.
In your own newspaper?
No. no, but in some of the other papers, I can't remember if it was in the Register, or it was one of the newspapers, had mentioned something about what was happening. So anyway, what happened was some of the Connecticut Post people come in that day and have a meeting with all of us in the press room. And it wasn't just the news people, but the whole paper. And at the time, that included circulation, it included advertising, the whole gamut. So they called us down. They told us that the Post was going to be under the guidance and the managerial discretion of the Post. That there were going to be some changes. But I'll never forget, one of the things they told us was, because people were concerned about what might happen, and one of the things they told us was, well, don't worry, there will always be a Sentinel. So, some of us believe this, some of us, a little skeptical about that, but okay. Well, and I'll tell you why it could have been technically true, at least for a while, but it turned out it was misleading at best. So there was a series that the Post would come in every day, and they would sort of oversee our paper, especially in the newsroom. They were there just about every day. And we still had some freedom, some latitude. But they started gradually inserting some of the Post pages into the paper. In November, they changed the name of the paper. And so what had been the Evening Sentinel, forever, became the Valley Sentinel. And people were wondering, well, what's that about? And it was the one Friday night I was off, because I had to work on Friday nights as a sports editor. One night I take off is when they do it. So I get a phone call from one of the people that was filling in for me that night. And
so the staff didn't know this was coming?
No. Nope.
Wow.
Nope, it was a surprise. And it was on a Friday night, so they didn't know about it until probably the next morning, most cases, or maybe Monday. So I remember asking a few people, who were sort of in Post management. I said, well, what was the name of the change of the name for? Why are they doing this? And so one of the answers I got, and it sounds crazy, well, we weren't quite sure people knew what the where the Sentinel was, and where, and we're all thinking anybody who lived in the Valley knew the Sentinel was part of the Valley. Nobody needed to describe it that way.
What is this Canadian paper?
Right? I mean, it was just bizarre. So then we're thinking, okay, something's really going on, and sure enough, it was a precursor of things to come. We get into December, and everybody's a little nervous about what's going to happen in the new year, if there would be a new year at the Sentinel. And there was one incident, I remember the flag, the American flag was hung upside down one day when we were in there.
Who did that? Was that a newsroom thing or like a press room thing?
Well, we don't, to this day, it's one of those mysteries. We don't know who did that. I have
the
editor.
Suspicions,
but I suspect it wasn't somebody in the newsroom. It has some ideas, but sort of a distress symbol, and boy, was that symbolic. Well, anyway, December 21st, it was a Monday, and I remember I was going up to the composing room, and the I guess he was the managing editor at the time, Garth Miniger, was walking down the steps, and I said to Garth, Garth, what's going on? And he mumbled something. I don't know what he said. But it didn't sound good. I remember that. I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't going to turn out well. So Anyway, we had a meeting.
Jeez, man.
Oh yeah, this was ominous, you know. So right after deadline, we were an afternoon paper, evening paper. So, you know, deadline 11, by 12 o'clock, it was usually to the press room. So right after that, we had a meeting in the newsroom, and that's when they told us. And at first, it sounded like, well, that doesn't sound too bad. The press run's going to be out of Bridgeport. Well, that's not good for our press people, but at least the paper's still intact, and it wasn't the catastrophe. But then, as the discussion was going on, it became clear what was the whole story. And they told us that the last day of the paper would be December 24th, Christmas Eve day. And they offered some of us in the newsroom jobs as stringers, as correspondents. And most of the people, though, weren't even that fortunate in the other departments. They took, I think, maybe 6 or 7 people or something on full-time. I was lucky. I had been offered a correspondent job, and then a couple weeks later became full-time at the Post. But it was a depressing day.
Yeah.
You know, it was, I mean, it's still...
Yeah, did you take it? Just watch it, because this microphone it'll sound like thunder when you're hitting
okay.
it. So I didn't want to break your train of thought.
Okay, no.
But did you take any solace in the fact, or did you even feel the community impact? Because it's reverberating today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you, or did it help in any way? Or
you know, I don't think it made much of an impact, but I will say we felt it. Because the funny thing about it was, you know, back in the day, people, they would complain about the Sentinel, you know, oh, there's never anything to read in the Sentinel.
The local rag.
They're biased, you know, and the things that, you know, all journalists face,
All
all
the time.
newspapers
Yeah.
face, all the time.
Yep.
But boy, oh boy, every day, I remember in Derby in particular at the cigar store, right up the street. When George Drew owned it, you know, people would wait in line for the paper to come out in the afternoon.
Wow.
And so they'd complain about it, but they were there every day. So once they found out about it, once the community found out about it, the reaction was, it was not pleasant. They were not happy. And they made their opinions known. People canceled their subscriptions left and right, to the point where the Register put in a little coupon. Tell the Connecticut Post that you want to cancel your subscription. Sign this. You know, and there was this. It prompted this big war between the Register and the Post. Oh man, that was a whole other story. But yeah, people were very loyal.
And did it sour you? I don't know how long you stayed in the profession after that, but you know, there's so much change that happened in, like, I think the last 10 years of newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
Did it sour you on the industry at all, having that happen, or was it?
Well, it certainly, you know, Eugene, it was a sort of a dilemma that I was in, because on one hand, I felt the same things that the people in the Valley, growing up in Derby, lived in Derby, felt. So I wasn't happy with what happened at all. But of course, I couldn't really say that publicly because I was working for the Post, you know, and so it sort of set up a very difficult situation. But people would say to me, you know, whether I was covering meetings or out on the street or whatever it was, I can't believe what they did to, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you know, but there's only so much I could say. But they knew.
Even on the street, you can't reveal, like, hey, I'm just as angry as you.
Right.
You know,
I mean, they knew. I would sort of hint at it a little bit, or I would sort of nod and say, but clearly that was the case. And they said, and then they would say, and I'm not talking to people at the Post. I'm not going to do it. I'm, you know.
Please.
And it was almost this sort of, you know.
You're kicking me while I'm down.
Well, no, but the irony was they would talk to me. Because they didn't see me as a real Post person, they saw me as the Sentinel guy, you know. So it was okay, but it was like this cognitive dissonance. It really was. It was like on one hand, but on the other hand, they were saying something else. But there was a tremendous amount of loyalty there, and I think it was one of those things where, you know, I can say anything I want about my brother, but God help the person, you know, outside the family who can say that. It was that kind of an attitude.
And then did the Post, like the newsroom, sort of take you in? Were you immediately one of their own, or
At the Post?
yeah, or was there like, oh, we got that it's a Valley guy,
Yeah.
hide the beer.
I spent most of my time in the Valley Bureau, so there wasn't a lot of time that I was in Bridgeport. But I would, I would tell people at the Post, because there were some decisions that they made. They eliminated in fact, it might have even been before. Well, I'm sorry, just to backtrack if I can.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You guys are all right? This is
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
learning.
this
Go on, yeah, go ahead.
I
This
have
is the first time I've heard
a
the story
yeah.
from an eyewitness.
Okay, I didn't want to monopolize the
No.
You get donate $100. Valley donate.valleyindy.org. You want to hear more? I know you do. All right, go ahead. Sorry. Times have changed.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
I've been
now
reduced
you-
to begging.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
The Valley Sentinel name, though, that's where that ties into what I was saying earlier. When they told us there would always be a Sentinel, what happened was that the first edition of the Post after we closed was called the Valley Sentinel. It continued on the masthead, only now it said an edition of the Connecticut Post. So it made it clear we were a part of the Post, but they try to keep the name, to kind of try to keep the loyalty. Well, that failed miserably because people saw right through that. But that was one of the things that they did. So yes, there was a Sentinel, and I think the intent was to keep that, but it wasn't the Sentinel as we all knew and loved. So it was a whole different dynamic.
That marketing department must. I don't know.
Well,
They
Not the
deserve
most
has to
well-
pay for that.
yeah,
Right?
it was.
not the most well thought out. I mean, it's easier to hindsight's 2020. I guess. But.
I'm just amazed that whoever was in the room when they made that decision, said, okay, I have an idea. Let's close the Valley's only daily newspaper, which has been around for over 100 years. We're going to lay off, whatever the numbers were,
Everyone.
60, just about,
Yeah.
68 out of 74, whatever it was, employees. And we'll do it on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a public relations nightmare. It should be in textbooks at some
Right,
point.
and in fact, I literally still hear about it just about every day.
And
Yeah.
people
That
still
story.
have their old mailboxes.
Yeah, they're starting.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
becoming more and more rare. I think, but
Are
yeah,
they?
Yeah.
yeah.
I still see the yellow box.
When I first moved up
Yeah.
here, I had no idea. I'm like, what's the Sentinel? Why don't I can't find it anywhere? And like, who do I have? What club do I have to join to get this local newspaper? And
You just have to
20
sign
years
it.
after it.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, and in fairness, it really wasn't the Post that did it. It was Thompson Newspapers. The publisher at the Post had something to do with it, I think. But the daily reporters, editors, most of the people
That's
there,
the
it was at
decision.
the very high
Yeah.
high end.
Oh, yeah, literally. I mean, to make a decision like that, you have to be so out of touch.
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't originate locally.
Yep.
So if you're just joining us, I'm Eugene. Melvin Mason just joined us.
Right.
He's a former Connecticut Post reporter. He covered the Valley. He now edits the Stratford Star for Hersham Acorn.
HAN Network. You got to make sure.
Oh, that
it's
changed?
HAN
Now
Network. It's
HAN
not Hersham
Network.
Acorn anymore. It's now the HAN Network. I'm sure Mr. John Kovacs, our editorial director, would make sure I get that correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Marty Hersham, too.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
So
And,
the N in HAN doesn't already stand for
Yeah,
network?
yeah.
Listen, I'm old school. I
I
read the Lewisboro Ledger back in the day. I'm
Yeah.
calling it Hersham Acorn.
Yeah, it's almost like
Too bad.
It's almost like ESPN. Everyone says Entertainment and Sports Network, but it says no. We don't. It doesn't stand for anything. So HAN doesn't really. HAN
okay.
It's still owned by the Hershams, but it's still HAN Network. That's what it is now. Long things. That's all.
So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Sorry
then
about
that was Joe Musante from the Evening Sentinel. No, it's okay, Melvin.
Yeah.
And this is conversational. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly.
Totally. And this is Jodie Gill,
Yeah.
who wrote for the Rep Am.
And then-
And you know what? Actually, we have a quiz coming up later.
Okay.
I just kind of spoiled it, but don't say where you worked immediately prior to the Valley Indy. That's one of our
Oh,
quiz
okay,
questions
okay.
coming up
And
at
all
7
of us?
p.m.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
just
I
you.
guess just I only
you.
worked here. So
Yeah,
that's-
yeah. So anyway, and we're talking about what it was like to cover the Valley. We had Kate Rammuni from the Connecticut Post talking about going through a terrorist trash. That was good. We got readers commenting. Kathy Moran, who actually literally baked us a cake and brought it here,
Oh, wow.
all the way from like Route 110 in Shelton, was here by 7:30 this morning. So thank you, Kathy. She says, thanks to all of you for the work you've done covering the Valley and for sharing all your stories over the years. I go back to having the Post and Telegram plus the New York Daily News and New York Post. Yeah, that was on at my house at night. No Sunday Times, and recall the Register versus the Post. I'll have to catch the rest on playback. Keep the real stuff coming. Well, thanks for your support last year, this year, and this morning. And that's Kathy Moran. So.
Hilarious.
Now let me interrupt for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
You have a big life change coming. When you're getting married?
Yeah.
When?
Friday in New York City. Yep. Yeah. My wonderful fiance Allison. She and I will be wedded on Friday, and
does it feel strange? Yeah, because I'm married too, and at first it's like in your it's like what is going on?
I know, and I was going to ask you how did you deal with it, but I'll just tell you right now. It's just
go rewind. The Dewdrop In was here earlier. He's got all my how I deal with everything.
Oh, okay.
Jake Carlucci from the Dew.
Yeah, no, but I'm kind of I've been obviously. Bachelor for God knows how long, and then all of a sudden
you know exactly how long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. So it's a change because it's almost like with me, and even my future wife will tell you this. It's like I'm very resistant to changing on certain things, but then when I get into it, I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad, and I think she kind of pulled me along in that way, and I haven't really had a chance to get used to the whole, getting ready to get married thing because I've been so busy working. I mean, we have done some planning stuff. We had to go out and get stuff for our reception. We had to go out and, make sure I got the right shoes. She's like constantly stressing over her dress and making sure it doesn't get messed up and everything. So, but the work and having to put this paper out the Stratford Star, you just end up spending so much time focused on that you really don't get a chance to think about the wedding part.
We got about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Sure, no problem.
So.
That's fine.
Although we could go a little longer.
Yeah, whatever.
But I wanted to ask you worked for the Rep Am. I emailed Paul Singley, never heard back.
Oh yeah, what happened?
I don't know.
Let's have
Paul.
Singley
He
here.
probably never got it.
It's probably.
But no, this is perfect. This is perfect.
First time I saw Jodie, she shot me this steely glare.
Because you were
I'm
my
gonna
competition.
get you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get him.
I'm like, who is that?
Yeah,
You're like, is he gonna beat me? Is there some scoop I'm missing? Because I would miss scoops and like Kate's going through trash. I'm just like, oh man.
Exactly. And then of course, and Elizabeth Benton too. Who now works for Senator Blumenthal's office. And she worked. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember she came.
The register, right?
She and I went head to head probably a lot more than you and I did because.
Well, you covered all the Lower Valley.
Yeah, I covered all the Lower Valley
towns. I just did Seymour.
Yeah, Seymour. So she was always in. And so
where you now live. So Seymour had such a
house.
big impact on you. You decided, what, I'm going to set up my roots here.
Well, I decided to move to the Valley.
It was the Board of Finance meeting that you went to, and you were like, that's it, I'm in.
I'm like, this is it. Okay. I decided to move to the Valley, which Joe's probably laughing about. Because Joe and I worked together when I was in college. So he was in the PR department, and I was like their intern.
Yep. At Southern.
Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in Milford. And actually, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but like, you all know because you're living in the Valley now, but like, people outside the Valley have a different point of view of the Valley than people
No! What do you mean?
We all know that. So as a Milford resident, I had this like already set mindset, even though I don't know if I'd ever even been in the Valley. And Joe was from the Valley, and I'm like, oh, the Valley. And we would always joke about it. So then when I got a job in the Valley, he calls me up and says, oh, you're in the Valley. That's interesting. And then I left. I came back, and I talked to you again, and you're like, oh, you're back. And then I married someone from the Valley, and then moved.
You married a Valley dude.
Yeah. So then
a Derby
I'm
guy.
Sure, every time. Yeah, he's from Derby. Yeah. Every time you're like, oh, weird. Every time we talked about it, I was right. So
that's a true story. I mean, when she first started as a student, she didn't have the same view of the Valley as I did, and I'd be like, no, it's a great place. It's still there, and so we go back and forth. But I will say one thing for Jodie, though. Despite that one misjudgment that
complete snob.
Yeah, I
it was.
Snob, I'll admit it now.
But she was a kid. She was just a college.
I was naive.
Yeah. But she was our student worker, and she did a lot of writing in our public relations office. And I will say, she is still, to this day, the gold standard by how we judge student workers, and that's absolutely true.
Nice, thank you.
She was a very hard worker.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Right?
Just
Thank you.
unbelievable.
That's nice.
Yep. The first time,
Scary, almost.
right? Oh
Yeah.
The first time she came back with an article that she'd written. In fact, I accompanied her on her first interview just to make sure everything was
she's
okay.
Not a wingnut.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it'll be
she sat there, and I'm like, I don't really need.
From Milford,
I-
actually.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, that's
We
so.
got lost on the way there.
That's right. But she came back, and somewhere I still have in the office your first article that when you interviewed Paula Kennedy, who was I think the interim admissions director at the time.
Okay.
And the thing is, you know, Eugene, she showed promise from the get-go. I was like, okay, she's got potential.
You work with this.
You know,
Okay.
and she really did. And over the next 2 years, it was almost like having another staff person for a while, especially toward the end. It was like, oh, you don't really want to leave, do you?
And then, hey, I came back.
And then
so-
she came back.
Well, thank
That
you.
was a professor, journalism professor.
All right, so at this point in the roundtable discussion, we actually hit technical problems. And unbeknownst to me, they started to plague us the rest of the Great Give. Luckily, this was pretty deep into the 36-hour event, probably like hour 33 or 34. But anyway, I could play more, but I'm just going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, to play us out, it's the Bad Slugs, a group of reporters or journalists who are in a band. Find out more about them, thebadslugs.bandcamp.com. Thanks a lot.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day. Online clickbait a prurient way. It's free information here to stay. Not even hookers give it away. Advertising, metastasizing, newsroom shrinking, constant attrition. We'll ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur.